So we're back on the Charade again today, slowly working towards the manual swap. I've kind of just been off camera, just pottering about, having a look at things. It's not looking too good. So the box that we're putting in and all the bits we're putting in came out of the white Charade, which was like a facelifted version of this. I thought it was just, you know, they changed the body panels, engines were all the same, gearboxes were all the same. I know that, but it looks like they made a lot more than just those changes. So the white one had like a cross member and all, not a full subframe. This one has nothing. So it means all the engine mounts are slightly different on this. I've also found that the drive shafts are smaller on this. So I might need to use the drive shafts from the white one, which are back at the house. Problem is I don't know if they're the same length, so we might have to make something. What I'm doing at the minute is I'm gonna mount the gearbox up to the engine and get it in the car so we can get a lay of the land. I'm probably gonna have to make up some sort of custom engine mounts, using bits from the white one, bits from this one, to make something work. What we're currently dealing with is the engine mounts, slash gearbox mounts. So I'll show you here. You can see there, we've got one mount here, and this is the old auto box mount, and you can see it's miles away from this. And the way I've got the engine at the minute is it should be level left to right and back to front, and also I measured sort of the distance here to try and make sure it's straight on, and like looking through where the drive shafts go, you can sort of see it looks like a pretty straight shot at the gearbox there. So I think where the engine physically is in the engine bay is good. I think we can leave that at that, but the problem is we need to sort out this engine mount. You can see how far it is there, and then we've got one on the back here as well, down there, and then you can see the gearbox there. The back one I haven't looked at too much. So the old auto box mount, like you can see just by physically looking at the auto box, it's way more massive. This is the rear mount for it, which sits like so, and just bolts on to the back of this here, comes up and out at that. So there is bolts on the manual box here, and I'll have to sort something out with that. This thankfully unbolts. This is the bit that actually goes on the mount, so I would just have to like make something similar to this and then bolt it up to that. What I need to do first is take this part of the mount off, and I'm just gonna cut there on both sides to take this bit off, and then we can start welding up some flat stock and stick it in its place, and hopefully this will all be all mounted up and happy enough soon. My only real concern at the minute is I've never ever done something like this before, where you're like making engine mounts and all. It's not really from scratch, but putting it all together, so I don't really know if I'm doing it right. I don't know if it's going to be strong enough. I'm just going to kind of do it, hope and pray. We'll see how it goes. It's not like it's a 1,000 horsepower car. I can't imagine it's going to be a big deal. So we'll get it and we'll get started here. and I've got the first engine mount made here. So that little U part on the right is the original of this car, and the rest of it I've just made out of flat bar and welded it together and boxed it off so it's strong, it's welded underneath, and all the spot welds. And that mounts in here. So there's 2 bolts here and 2 bolts down here, and they go on this little rubber damper. So that should be the right side of the engine mounted now. It's slowly building up and building up. So the first thing I noticed was the shafts that came out of the manual box were bigger than the auto ones. So I disassembled a lot of the shafts and mixed and matched parts from the auto box and the manual. So I think I've got 2 good drive shafts here. Those 2 are the old ones that I don't think will work. You can see I've put the old ends for the hub on the new shaft, so hopefully that's all okay and we can work away with that. So that's what it looks like all bolted up. You can see the 2 bolts down here, 2 up here. It's pretty rudimentary, but I think it'll hold up well. It's still rubber mounted, so that's good, so it shouldn't give a bunch of noise into the cabin. And it looks pretty strong, especially with this boxed sectiony bit off, and it's plated all under here and welded around and spot welded underneath. So that makes it real nice and strong to this U piece. So that's all good. I'm going to unbolt that again now. I'll unbolt this side and I'll pull the engine out, pull the intake manifold off, and then we can drop it back in and hopefully get rid of the crane because it's really getting in my way, and just use a jack underneath to level it out. Right, so I just finished up the back gearbox mount. So this is the original piece I unbolted that bolts onto the rubber mount, and then I got this plate which I had to weld in the middle, which goes onto the back of the box, and then this one goes around the side. So there's 3 10mm and then 2 12mm there, and then I just plated it on the front side, put a plate on the top and put the 2 12s up through here. So I think that should be pretty strong. Everything's sort of welded inside and out. My welder's probably not up to spec to really weld stuff this thick, but it seems to be doing a pretty good job of it. I think it's sort of maybe at its upper limit of what it can do. But yeah, so I'm going to get it bolted in now, and the engine should be fully bolted up to the car. I won't need to use anything to support it anymore. Remove the support and see it's in there pretty solid. This mount seems okay. Got the one at the back, it's all solid, and then the last one we made up the front. So the engine's in there with the manual box and nothing's helping it. I also just connected up the shifting rods there. So now we can go into gear. nice and centered in there, so that fit nicely. Didn't have to make any modifications to that, just bolted it up. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. That's just in now. So we've got gears. We still need to sort out the clutch and the drive shaft. So the next thing I'm going to do is whack the drive shafts I'm sort of built up in and see if they're the right size, because I'm worried about that. And then after that we can work on the clutch cable. I think that's going to need some work. I don't think that's just going to work at all. Got the drive shafts in both sides. I need to sort out the boots for those, but they fit. That's the main thing. They're all in, so that's one less thing I can have to worry about. They fit grand. Engine mount seem to be doing well. All good. And the shifter's in and all working well. So it's starting to look up. And the only problem we have at the minute is the clutch cable. So I've had a look. The cable's too small. It doesn't even really reach this little holder for it, which isn't a big deal. I can always just cut and extend that. But the problem is it doesn't reach this at all when it's attached to the pedal. It's like, just to attach it to the pedal, the cable's pulled all the way up. So that's too short. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. The old clutch cable doesn't work. The only thing I can think is if I can somehow cut that off, pull the actual cable through, because I can work with this. This adjuster's fine, and then run a new cable and get more of these little, like, I'm not sure if they're crimped on or soldered on, these little lines. I'm sure I'd be able to figure something out, so I think I'm going to have to research that and figure out a way to basically make a new cable for that, because I can't really move the clutch pedal, because if I move the clutch pedal any further down, it'll hit the floor. If I say cut the top off to make it so the cable doesn't have to reach as far, then it doesn't have the same throw. I could maybe try cutting and welding this, but again, I feel like I could easily change the throw on it so we wouldn't get a full clutch pull, or, you know, I just wouldn't be too keen on that. So I think what I'm going to have to do is make a custom cable up. But that's sort of the last piece of the puzzle. Right, we're back. I picked up some wire from B&Q and I'm going to see if I can make a clutch cable. I'm also trying to paint up these engine mounts just so they don't rust. So this is 3mm stainless steel cable, which is also what that is. Right, from the firewall there and going in. And as I said, this is too short. So my only idea currently is to cut this one off and keep the little ends for it, and then I can run this through to whatever length I need. And then I was just going to cut a wee square of steel and slide it over that and then weld it on, because that's just steel. A wee square of that should weld together, even though it'll be stainless to mild, but sure, whatever, it should be grand. And that means I can keep that on there. That's my only thought of fixing this at the minute. The only other problem I have at the minute is this bracket here that holds that on is too far away. So I'm gonna have to probably just cut it off there, just right at this angle, and just extend it out. And it looks like a few centimeters. And then I'll weld that, so I'll probably tackle that first, so this can be held solidly in place. And then I can cut the cable and look at measuring up to reach there and reach in the pedal inside there. I'm hoping once all that's done, that'll be the clutch sorted, and that'll be a sweet with the whole manual conversion. At that point, we just need to paint up the other engine mount and then slap the engine back together. This looks a bit ridiculous, but I've just crudely extended this with a bit of flat steel, and you can see now it's sort of in the right place, but that doesn't reach at all, and that's with like it pulled in all the way on the other side. I still need to tidy up that plate and, you know, just make it a wee bit nicer than it is, but it's in where it's going to be now. You can see that cable back there is routed really nicely. It just comes in there. No idea what the factory one should have been like, but sure, this is what it is. I just now need to extend this so it reaches in this and reaches on that side. So I'm gonna cut that. I'm very nervous about doing this because, well, once I cut it, there's no going back. So you can see there, I've got the clutch cable underneath, it's nice and tight. Tried to get the angle in there best I could, but it's not perfect. And you can see I've extended that bracket quite a ways away just to make it so it routes nicely back in there. So I think as far as that goes, I think the manual swap's pretty much done now. We've still a lot to be doing, but we're getting closer. I won't really know if the whole clutch situation works until the engine's running. I need to see how that goes first. But I think that'll do it for this one. We've got the manual swap in, we made the engine mount, sorted the drive shafts, did a hell of a lot to get to this point. Next time hopefully we'll get it running and we take a wee spin around the yard with the manual. After that, paint and fixing the rest. But for now, I think that'll be it. Make sure you subscribe so you can stick around and see when we get this thing running. But yeah, that'll be everything for today.